Happiness fades. Dignity stays. Most people believe the goal of life is happiness. More comfort, more pleasure, more approval. But here's the uncomfortable question. If happiness is the answer, why do people feel more exhausted the closer they get to it? This is not a video against happiness. It's a video about what you trade away to get it. Kant believed happiness is optional. Dignity is not. To understand why, we need to start with Kant's most radical claim about what a human being is worth. Kant's philosophy begins with a warning. Never treat a human being as a means. This is Kant's core claim, and it's more radical than it sounds. Kant believed that a human being is an end in itself, not a tool, not a resource, not a stepping stone toward success, money, or approval. You are not valuable because of what you produce. You are not valuable because of how useful you are. You are not valuable because others want you. Your value exists before all of that. This is not self-esteem, it's not confidence, it's not positive thinking. Kant wasn't talking about how you feel about yourself. He was talking about what you are allowed to do to yourself. And here is the dangerous implication. If you treat yourself as a tool, you may gain happiness, you may gain comfort, you may gain approval, but you lose something more expensive. Because once you turn yourself into a means, you are no longer protected by dignity. Your value no longer comes from being human, it comes from being useful. And usefulness always has an expiration date. That's why Kant believed this. Your value does not come from what you produce, but from the fact that you are not for sale. But modern life quietly teaches the opposite. Most people don't lose dignity suddenly, they trade it gradually. No one wakes up one day and decides to betray themselves. It starts quietly. You accept work you hate because it feels safer than uncertainty. You say things you don't believe because being liked feels better than being honest. You push yourself past exhaustion because recognition feels like proof of worth. Each choice looks reasonable. Each compromise feels small. But Kant would say this is where the moral line is crossed. Because the moment you use yourself as a tool, you violate the most basic ethical principle, not against others, against yourself. You turn your own mind, body, and values into instruments for an external reward, safety, love, status, happiness. And here's the illusion. It works at first. You get the approval, you get the paycheck, you get the applause. But it never lasts. Because happiness bought with self-betrayal is always temporary. The reward fades, the standard rises, the demands increase. And now you must give up more just to keep what you already traded for. This is why Kant's warning matters today. Not because modern people are immoral, but because modern systems quietly train us to sell ourselves piece by piece. And nowhere is this more extreme than in modern hustle culture. Hustle culture teaches one rule: your worth equals your output. It sounds motivating until you realize what it erases. Rest becomes weakness, limits become laziness, being human becomes inefficient. In this logic, you are no longer a person. You are a system to be optimized, a resource to be extracted, a machine measured by performance. Kant would recognize this immediately, because when you treat yourself as a machine, you reduce a human being to a tool. Your time becomes raw material. Your energy becomes fuel. Your exhaustion becomes evidence of commitment. And the more you suffer, the more valuable you're told you are. But here's the contradiction. A system that rewards burnout cannot respect dignity, because dignity requires one thing productivity can never provide: an unconditional value. In hustle culture, value is always conditional. Work harder and you matter. Slow down and you disappear. This is not ambition, it is moral extraction. And Kant's warning applies perfectly here.
If your worth must be proven through output, then you are no longer an end in yourself. You are a means serving a system that never says enough. But work is not the only place where dignity gets quietly traded. Sometimes it happens in the way we present ourselves.
You don't need an employer to lose dignity. Sometimes you do it to yourself. No one forces you. You volunteer. You turn your identity into a brand, your opinions into content, your personality into a product. You are always visible, always available, always performing. Likes become feedback. Attention becomes validation. Desire becomes currency. And slowly, something shifts. You stop asking, is this true? You start asking, will this perform? Through a Kantian lens, this is not harmless, because when you reduce yourself to an image, you treat your humanity as a product. Your worth becomes external. Your value becomes negotiable. Your self-respect becomes conditional. You are no longer an end in yourself. You are an object waiting to be approved. And here is the cost most people miss. The moment you market your soul, someone else sets the price. Algorithms decide what matters. Audiences decide what's acceptable. Trends decide who you should be next. You adapt. You optimize. You fragment. Until one day you feel exhausted but unsure why. This is not creative fatigue. It is moral fatigue. Because living as an object requires constant self-surveillance, and that pressure does not fade, it accumulates. Which brings us to the final cost of trading dignity for happiness: burnout. Burnout is not a productivity problem, it's a dignity problem. Burnout is often framed as exhaustion, too many tasks, too little rest, poor time management. But that explanation is shallow, because many burned out people aren't lazy, they're disciplined. They push through fatigue, override discomfort, silence inner resistance, again and again and again. Burnout happens when you live as a means for too long, when every day requires self-override. You ignore what feels wrong. You suppress moral hesitation. You trade inner alignment for external demands. From a Kantian perspective, this is not weakness. It is resistance. The body rebels when it is treated like a machine. The mind resists when it is used only as a tool. Not because you are fragile, but because dignity has been violated repeatedly, quietly, routinely, systematically. This is why burnout feels different from simple tiredness. Rest doesn't fix it. Vacation doesn't resolve it, because the problem is not energy, it is self-respect. Burnout is the cost of a life lived against your own humanity. And this is why Kant placed dignity above happiness, not because happiness is bad, but because happiness without dignity cannot last. Happiness depends on conditions. Dignity doesn't. Happiness is fragile. It rises with success, falls with loss, disappears when circumstances change, because happiness is a state, an emotion, a reaction, a response to what happens to you. Dignity is something else entirely. It is not how you feel, it is how you stand. Happiness asks, is my life pleasant right now? Dignity asks, can I live with myself even when it isn't? This is the difference Kant insisted on. You can be unhappy and still intact, grieving, failing, alone, but not broken. And you can be successful and hollow, admired, well-paid, celebrated, yet unable to sit quietly with your own reflection. From Kant's view, this is decisive. Happiness can vanish overnight. Illness, rejection,
economic collapse, but dignity remains if your actions were principled. If you did not treat yourself or others as tools, if you did not sell your humanity for comfort. Only dignity allows you to live with yourself when circumstances collapse. And this is why Kant considered dignity non-negotiable, not a luxury, not a reward, a condition for a life that does not disintegrate under pressure. This leads to Kant's hardest truth. Kant didn't say happiness is bad. He said it's not worth buying with your humanity. Happiness is not the enemy. Comfort is not immoral. Pleasure is not shameful. What Kant rejected was the trade. The moment you say, I will bend my principles just this once to feel better, that is the moment dignity is priced. And once priced, it is no longer yours. This is the cost most people never calculate. A life without dignity is expensive, not because it fails, but because it succeeds while emptying you. You pay for it every day, with silence, with numbness, with the quiet feeling that something essential was traded away. Kant believed this was the real tragedy, not suffering, but living in comfort while slowly disappearing from yourself. A life without dignity is expensive. You pay for it every day with yourself. And this is why dignity comes first. Not because it makes you happier, but because it makes you unbreakable when happiness disappears. If you want philosophy that protects your dignity, not your ego, subscribe and learn to live by principles that don't collapse when happiness does.